Hello, I am Ignace Aleya from ToleratedCinematics.com, and as you have seen in the previous tutorial, we created the Earth in 3D in Cinema 4D, which you probably have if you have After Effects, because you could also follow that along with Cinema 4D Lite. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look on how to actually composite everything together and make the Earth look a lot more realistic than straight out of Cinema 4D, because we need to add some glows to the atmosphere and stuff like that. So let's open up After Effects, open up your rendered files from Cinema 4D from the previous tutorial, and let's get started. Alright, so here we are in After Effects, and we're going to recreate the intro that you just saw. In the previous tutorial we had a look on how to recreate the Earth in Cinema 4D. You can actually also follow that in Cinema 4D Lite, which comes with After Effects nowadays. But if you don't feel like following this tutorial, like always, you can buy the project files with the link in the description, or if you want to support the channel, you can do so. So let's get started. I have my files here. In the previous tutorial I did an export right here. Actually, I didn't do it in the tutorial, but I did an export like this, where I have my Earth turning around and zooming into my Earth a little bit. So that's all I've done. I will just create, well, actually I'm going to drag and drop this into a new composition. I will change my color space here to 16-bit per channel, and then I'm going to right click here in my scene to new solid, and I'm going to call this star field, because actually we don't have any stars in the background. I'm going to drag this solid behind my Earth here, and as you can see, well, actually you can't really see it, but my background will be visible because my scene has been exported as a alpha with an alpha map actually. So if we're going to solo this, and I'm going to select my transparency, we don't see a background right here. So now I added this as a background, and here I want to apply some stars. To do that, I'm going to Effects and Presets, Fractal Noise. I'm going to apply my fractal noise here to my background. Now we can see something like this, which isn't what we're looking for, but if we go to Transform and we scale it down to something like 5% or 10%, depending on whatever you want, we can then increase the contrast here to something like this, and then just decrease the brightness, and there we see some stars. So it's already looking like stars. I don't really want to exaggerate, so we'll keep it as it is right now. Then I will go to Effect, Blur, and add some Gaussian blur. Change this to 1, and that will be enough so my stars aren't as sharp. Once you have done that, we can continue with the Earth. We want to add more contrast, more sharpness to our Earth right here. Okay, so I'm going to click on my layer here, go to Effect, Color Correction Curves like we always do, and then I'm going to add a S-curve to lower the shadows here, and then just increase it a little bit on the highlights. But just make sure you're not clipping because it can get overexposed really quickly. So then we're going to the red channel maybe, and just increase it slightly here, and just decrease it in the shadows. And then for the blue, we can actually take away some blue here and just increase it here in the shadows. And that way we get something like this, so it's already looking better. Then go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, and add an Unsharp mask, and here we're going to increase the amount to 75. Then we can duplicate that same Unsharp mask with Ctrl D or Edit Duplicate, and then change the amount to something like 50, and the radius to 35. Well, actually the amount can be 25, but that way it's going to pop a little bit. You can see what the difference is. It looks more contrasty, and it's just a wider kind of sharpening, which is pretty cool. Really give some detail to our Earth right here. So we have done that now. Let's create a new adjustable layer. Rename this Glow. Go to Effect, Stylize, and add a glow. And here we can play around with the radius just a bit. Just zoom in a little bit. And we're going to lower, of course, the intensity to something like 0.1. And just increase the threshold here. Okay, so that's helping a little bit. Looking pretty cool. Then I'm going to add a new adjustment layer and do a grade here. So something that we want to do, Effect, Color Correction Curves maybe again. And then go to the colors. So now we can play with the colors itself. So maybe add a little bit of blue in the darkness. So that the black isn't actually black, but more like a kind of dark blue. So we're going to take this really carefully. Also for the reds, we can take them away here. It actually becomes kind of cyan. So now we don't have a completely black space here, so that's cool. What I also did, but you don't have to follow if you don't want to, but I added an adjustment layer, renamed it LUT, and I'm going to apply one of our LUTs. So apply color LUT, and if I apply this, for example, the apocalypse, you're going to see that it's going to look pretty cool. Press T on the keyboard to lower the opacity to something like 70, and there we go. So now we have something like this, which looks pretty cool. Now I'm going to select my text tool and write something like tolerated cinematics. I'm using the font Lato with a light font here. Go to my select tool and then select align and just center out my text. But we can't really see the text well against our background, so what I will do is go to effects and presets and add a drop shadow. Drop shadow. I'm going to drag this onto my text, and immediately you're going to define your text a little bit better. Yeah, so that way we can actually use it. Then go a little bit further into the timeline, and then press T on the keyboard and click on the stopwatch for opacity and change it back to 0. Then go 30 frames further and then change it to 100. I'm going to add some blur as well, so I'm going to effect blur and sharpen Gaussian blur. And I'm going to click on the stopwatch here, so for the blurriness, 0, right here at the end of my animation. If I go to the beginning where the opacity is 0, I'm going to increase my blurriness to something like 50. Now if we're going to play this, you're going to see that it's blurry while it actually fades in, and that gives a cool effect. Then I also want my text to actually space out a little bit, so it's actually moving a little bit to give it some more dynamic feeling. We'll click on my text, go to animation, and then go to text animation, or animate text actually, and then I'm going to add some tracking here. We're going to click on the stopwatch for the tracking amount, and then all the way to the end of your timeline. You can actually change this back to something like 2, or maybe even more, something like 4, and that way it's going to animate it. You can see that your text winds up a little bit. What we can also do is go to our background layer, and here we're going to add an effect blur and sharpen, and we're going to add camera lens blur. Click on the stopwatch here at the beginning of your animation of your text that fades in. Click on stopwatch and make it 0. And then right here, when the text is actually faded in, we can change it to something like 15. And that way it actually focuses on the text and is going to be better to read as well, so you can actually see and focus on your text itself. You can also play with the gain here. So, well, I'm not sure if you can do it right here, but what I will do is go to color correction, exposure, and I'll also animate this here. So exposure, click on stopwatch, press U on the keyboard to reveal the keyframes, and I'm going to move this keyframe to the beginning of the animation, and then the exposure, I'm going to bring it down like -1, and that way it's going to darken up a little bit, and your text will be even easier to read after that. So if we're going to preview this, we get something like this. Really cool. So yeah, that's actually it for this tutorial. If you liked it, give it a like. Also subscribe to the channel for more, and thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.